All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, thank you, Jamie, and you're awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you did finish it, Patrick? How'd you like it? What was your final verdict on the story?
Yes. What did you think? But no spoilers.
And thank you for still joining us.
Yes, that as well. That as well. Oh,
It is? All right. It's awesome. So we have a
oh.
lot to look forward to. We're almost finished, though.
We are almost done.
We're getting there.
We're close.
Was it 80 more chapters now?
No. I think we have like 60 more chapters or something.
Okay. I couldn't remember what chapter we were on. I know we were...
I think we have one more camping trip chapter left.
Yep.
Speaking of, let me pull it up and I'll tell you where we're at and how many we have left.
So I did hear some good news.
What's the good news?
So apparently, the head of Warner Brothers, or the new head of Warner Brothers, uncanceled J.K. Rowling.
Oh, that's nice.
And is apparently bringing her back to work on more Harry Potter projects.
Good.
So we may see some new Harry Potter content coming out in the future from Warner Brothers after Fantastic Beasts.
We still have to finish Fantastic. We have to watch Fantastic Beasts, but you know.
I mean, I'm down whenever. Hey, Kayla, and hello, Dan.
I'm not opposed. I mean, we said we would watch them. We just have not watched them.
That's fair.
Oh, sorry, I'm still coming down from my day.
Oh, it's okay.
A little bit.
Very hot here.
It's very, very hot today.
I'm trying to think. I don't think there was much other in ways of Harry Potter news that I heard.
I haven't heard anything.
It's been a while. I don't know. We've been so busy. I really haven't had time to delve into Harry Potter other than, going through chapters.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into anything. I feel like I haven't had time.
Oh, you didn't like Secrets of Dumbledore, Patrick?
Oh.
Any reason why? Is it the Lexitron reason? It wasn't canon? Or was there a particular moment where you just realized it's not good?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're good, Kayla. I'm a little tired. Can't say. Okay, fair enough.
So it's something with the ending.
It's a spoiler.
It's a big one.
It's a spoiler type reason why he didn't like it. Okay.
Fair enough. Well, appreciate you not spoiling it for us.
You'll see. Okay, we'll see. We have to watch the other two first. Sometime.
So speaking of the other two, what happened in the other two chapters that we read last time? Or we read more than two. We actually read a lot.
We read like 4 last time. Yep. Last time
I actually remember what happened last time, so new territory for me.
Hey. James and Sirius. Lupin and Sirius got together and it was just magical.
They got together, but they got together openly.
But not really.
Lupin.
Well, Lupin came out of the closet.
Lupin came out of the closet, and then that night, Sirius and Lupin share the tent and kick Mary out.
Yep.
Someone's suspicious. Just saying. Oh yeah, that's another thing. James and Lily both shared a tent.
Yes, James and Lily are getting together. That is happening.
Peter Pettigrew's with someone. We don't care about Peter.
Dorcas.
Yeah, Dorcas.
And James is being extremely overprotective of Lupin's gayness.
Yeah.
And Sirius is like, I don't know, but you got to give me a little time, but I'm going to try.
And I think it's funny that James is being protective over Lupin coming out so that because he thinks Sirius
is going to be a certain
dick.
Yeah. And Sirius is like, no, I am very accepting of this. And and then they went to a castle, and
normal kid stuff.
And Lupin is just beyond happy. Oh, Bailey needs.
Yeah, Bailey wants a moment in the spotlight.
Okay.
Been a while.
It has been a while since Bailey's been here to listen to the reading.
He's gotten a lot more freckles, I think.
Yeah, he's very freckly now. All up in here, very freckly. All up in here.
It's okay. They look good on you. Yeah, I think
that was pretty much it. Lupin came out, and then they got together, and that was pretty much what happened.
So on that note, should we dive into the next chapters?
Yeah, why don't we just read some?
Find out what we will be recapping next time?
Yes, let us read some.
Peter did have some action.
He did get some. He did.
And no one cared.
Yep.
Everyone was talking about Lily and James, and he's like, well, I had Dorcas and my
Yeah.
Cool,
he
man.
was like,
anyways,
trying to get people to care. And was disappointed people weren't interested in his action. That's right. So this says, content warning. Homophobic language and attitudes and generally unpleasant 1970s crap. The C word is used once in this chapter.
Ooh, the big one.
Okay, ready? Here we go. Chapter 118. Summer 1977, Part 5. 1977 and we are going mad. It's 1977 and we've seen too many ads. 1977 and we're gonna show them all. Apathy's a drag.
That ending was so perfect.
Monday, 19th of August, 1977. Remus awoke from his second full moon, slightly better off than his last, but unable to move. Moody had bound him to the bed, kept in the attic specifically for this purpose, using some kind of advanced magic. It didn't hurt, but it was pretty humiliating, having to lie there and wait to be released without any clothes on. Sirius had been vehemently against the idea, but it didn't hurt, and it was better than the alternative. Remus didn't care how the wolf felt about it. Made a lot of noise, Moody said as he released him. But that's to be expected. What do others do? Remus asked, pulling on his jeans quickly, wishing Moody would leave, or at least turn his back. The werewolves the Ministry knows about. Either deal with it at home like this, with an hour checking in before and after, or report to the Ministry holding cells. I'll get you a leaflet if you want. No thanks. Remus had the distinct impression that Moody did not approve of Remus's decision not to register himself. Downstairs in his normal bedroom, Mrs. Potter had laid out a set of robes on the bed for him. Not uniform robes, but normal everyday ones, the sort that James and Sirius wore out of school. He hoped they were hand-me-downs. He didn't know how he'd ever repay them if they started buying him clothes. They're going out. They're for going out, James explained when Remus asked about it. Diagon Alley today? With the first day of school not far off, it had been agreed that the boys would stay in Diagon Alley for the first few days of the summer holidays. Mr. and Mrs. Potter would be leaving for a few weeks, on business for Dumbledore, apparently, though they neither confirmed nor denied this. Even Moody could not argue with Remus going to Diagon Alley this time. Crawling with horrors these days. Undercover, you wouldn't even know it. And I'm 17, Remus said curtly, so I'm free to go where I please. Quite. Euphemia said tiredly. Their Hogwarts letters had arrived only a week ago, and to everyone's surprise, James had been named head boy, as evidenced by a brand new gold pin tucked inside his envelope. "Bloody hell!" James gasped. "What the fuck?" Sirius frowned. "Language!" Mrs. Potter scolded them both. She'd been very proud, of course, but James was only interested in telling Lily and rushed to owl her at once. In less than half an hour, they learned that she'd been made head girl. "It's fate!" James declared. "Destiny!" They used flu powder to get to the Leaky Cauldron, a homely, old-fashioned wizard pub which doubled up as a B&B, meeting place and general community centre as far as Remus could tell. James had booked 2 twin rooms, and after being greeted by the odd-looking hunchbacked publican, the 4 Marauders hauled their school trunks up the stairs to settle in. Remus was sharing with Peter, because neither Remus nor Sirius could come up with an excuse for sharing together. The rooms were adjoining, which was some small comfort, but not much. Diagon Alley was not like Hogsmeade, as Remus had thought it might be. It was more packed in, bustling, noisy, the wizarding equivalent of cosmopolitan. The streets were busy with throngs of students, and every shop was packed to the rafters. Gringotts was the first port of call for everyone, and Remus followed James and Sirius round the palatial bank, struck dumb by the complete alienness of everything. Remus had never been in a Muggle bank before, but nothing could have prepared him for Gringotts, goblins and secret passageways and mountains of gold. James and Sirius swanned about like VIP members. Mind you, they probably were. The goblins grovelled at their feet, which Remus found hugely distasteful, but couldn't really say anything about. He wished Lily were there, or Marlene and Mary, anyone a bit more down to earth. Remus had found he'd been left just under 400 galleons in the vault, which had once belonged to Lyle Lupin. This sounded like an enormous amount to Remus, until he saw the pitying look on Sirius's face. He quietly took out enough for his books and some new robes, as well as a bit of spending cash to convert to Muggle money. Remus was so shattered after the full moon and the flu powder and the bank that once he'd withdrawn his money, he had to go back to the room at the Leaky Cauldron to collapse. The others promised him they'd leave off shopping until the next day and would spend the rest of the afternoon looking at brooms and Quidditch supplies. Remus was too tired to care and crashed out on his little single bed, dead to the world for at least 15 hours. He didn't even wake when the others came clattering in at midnight, smelling strongly of whiskey, loudly shushing each other and giggling. The next day Lily arrived and their school shopping began in earnest. She and Remus had similarly methodical minds when it came to completing tasks, and conferred privately on a plan of action before ordering the other 3 boys about for the rest of the morning. Remus wished he could have more time in Flourish and Blots, but as they had done books last, being the heaviest items on the list, James, Sirius and Peter were seriously flagging by this point and on the verge of mutiny if they didn't get some ice cream. So, back to the Leaky Cauldron to dump their goods and have some lunch. "For God's sake, James, you can't have ice cream just before you've had any real food. That's ridiculous." Then to Florian Fortescue's, where Sirius tried to buy Remus a scoop of every flavour. "Come on, Moony, it's only fair. You've never tried them before. How will you know which one is your favourite?" Once all of this had been completed, Remus found his energy almost completely depleted once again, and it was only 2 in the afternoon. He considered taking a quick nap, but it was their last night in London, and he had one thing he really needed to do before leaving. It took a little while to get a quiet moment to himself, but in the gents at Florian Fortescue's, Remus took the opportunity to pull out his pocket watch. He clicked it open, the mechanism every bit as satisfying as it had been the first time he used it, and whispered, "Grant Chapman," at the compass half. He expected the arrow to start pointing east, but much to his alarm, it began to spin uncontrollably around faster and faster. The compass had not come with instructions, but Remus had a sinking feeling that something he'd known all along was finally being confirmed. Grant was not safe. Grant needed help. "I live off you, and you live off me, and the whole world lives off everybody. See, we gotta be exploited. See, we gotta be exploited by somebody, by somebody, by somebody."
Very nice. Yes, Bailey is sleepy. He's been outside in the sun today. It's very hot, so I'm pretty sure he's kind of exhausted.
He does look like Sleepy Wee. EDCBBD. EDCBBD. Yes.
It's hard to get comfy to take a nap, though, on my lap.
Well,
He's not a puppy anymore.
no. Remus hurried back to the little table outside the parlour where his 4 friends were sitting, making a lot of raucous noise over something Peter had just done with his milkshake. "All right, Mooney," Sirius grinned as Remus hovered nearby. "This lot want to go and do some sightseeing stuff, but it sounds boring. Want to bunk off on Carnaby Street finally?" "Yeah, great," Remus said, forcing a grin. He widened his eyes at Sirius, hoping he got the message. Thankfully, Sirius was very skilled at following secret signals and came over at once. "What's up?" he whispered. "You look a right state." "I have to go and find Grant," Remus said, agitated. "Look!" He showed Sirius the compass's mad spinning. "Right now?" Sirius frowned. "But we're going to—" "Now," Remus said. "I can't explain it, I just have to. I know I have to. Could you tell James and Peter something? I don't know what. Just if they ask." "What? No, I'm coming with you." "Sirius." "Remus." Sirius mocked his stern tone and quirked an eyebrow. Remus sighed. This was probably one of those things he was supposed to include Sirius in. He swallowed his temper and relented. "Okay, fine. Shall we just tell the others where we're going?" "No, don't argue with me on this." He didn't want anyone else knowing about Grant. Sirius, apparently recognizing that Remus would only go so far, nodded and didn't push his luck. They told the others they were going to Carnaby Street to look at the shops, paid and hurried away without looking back. They had to go and change into Muggle clothes first, and once they'd left Diagon Alley, they headed for Charing Cross Station and caught 2 tubes to the Squat and Mile End, which Remus thought was probably the best starting point. By the time they got there, it was almost 4 in the afternoon. Remus wasn't sure if it was a year of neglect or just hindsight that made the run-down block of tenements look much less welcoming than they had last summer. The smell of damp was stronger, part of the linoleum seemed to have been ripped up, exposing dirty, cracked cream tile. It was a warm day, but it still felt cold inside. Ads, the man Remus had met the year before, was the only one of the original crowd still living there. "Grant?" He scratched his head, looking dazed. "Yeah, I think he went out west when it was too rough round here. Hammersmith, maybe. Knocking this place down next week. I'm going to Wixton." "Hammersmith?" he said. "That's the other side of town." "Yeah, made some friends out there, I reckon. Grant's always good at making friends when it suits him." "Grant's always good at making friends when it suits him." He said that a bit sharply. Remus didn't like it, and automatically made himself taller, squaring his shoulders. Ads looked him up and down irritably and snapped, "Look, if he don't want to be found, he won't be." So back on the Central Line and across the city they went. As they passed Tottenham Court Road, Remus felt guilty for ruining Sirius's day in Muggle London, and secretly promised to make it up to him when next they had a chance. Still, Sirius was having a surprisingly good time, as enthralled by the escalators and ticket barriers as Remus had been at Gringotts. They changed at Notting Hill, then walked because Remus didn't have a clue where he was going, except for his nose and the compass, which was spinning less erratically now and seemed to be trying to lead in a vague direction. "It's amazing," Sirius said, staring up at the houses as they walked, peering into shop windows and stopping to watch double-decker buses shunt past. "I've lived in London most of my life, and I've never seen it like this." "Glad you're having fun," Remus said, distracted. They were in Shepherd's Bush now, he was pretty sure. It was past 6 in the evening, and he was slowing down. His hip hurt from the rattling about on the underground, his shins were sore from the walking, and his back hurt because of Moody's awful binding spell. "Let's sit down a minute," Sirius asked with a look of deep concern. "Look, there's a park over there." It was Shepherd's Bush Green. At least Remus knew where they were. He consented to rest only for a short while. He was mostly worried that once he'd sat down, it would be impossible to get back up. "Then I'll carry you," Sirius said. "Piss off, will you?" Remus snorted, resting his elbows on his knees and leaning forward. He pulled out the compass to check it once more. "It's going mental again," he groaned. "I thought I was getting somewhere." It might be because you're agitated, Sirius suggested delicately. Because it feeds off of your emotions toward the person you're looking for. So maybe if you... Are you telling me to calm down? Remus frowned. It might help, Sirius replied evenly. How about you tell me something about Grant? Something nice. If you think it'll help. They didn't have time for this. Grant needed him right now. But at this point, Remus was willing to try anything, even if it was just a ploy from Sirius to get more information. His name's Grant Chapman. I met him at St. Edmunds in 1975. He liked the same music as me. He's friendly. What does he look like? You've seen him. Not properly. I was a dog. Anyway, the point is to get you to think about him. I'm doing nothing but think about him, Remus snapped. He closed his eyes and breathed in. Fair hair, curls, I think blue eyes. Yeah, blue. He has a crooked front tooth. Last time I saw him, he was thinner. A swell of anxiety rose in his throat. He stammered. Go on, Sirius encouraged. You like the same music? So, Bowie, T-Rex. Yeah, and he likes, Deep Purple. Cool, okay. So that's how you became friends? Yeah, Remus nodded, feeling a bit better, focusing on the positive. He was the only one at St. Eddie's that wasn't a complete maniac or a criminal. I mean, he had a few charges, but not serious. Then one day he just kissed me, and that's how I knew. Remus glanced at Sirius quickly to check that it was okay to keep going. Sirius's smile had tightened a bit, but he nodded again. He's been a good friend apart from that, Remus explained. He never makes me feel bad about myself. He never makes me feel odd or different. He sounds like a really great mate, Sirius said politely. Yeah, and he'd do anything for me. That's why I need to... He looked down at the compass and saw that it was now pointing west, a little shaky, but clear enough for Remus. They got up and followed. It was past 7 now. They hadn't eaten since lunch, and the sun was beginning to set. Lily, James, and Peter would no doubt be wondering where they were. Sirius didn't complain, just kept quiet and followed while Remus mumbled to himself, following the little golden arrow on his palm and sniffing the thick London air. Shepherd's Bush wasn't much nicer than Mile End, and seemed to have a buzzing nightlife. Pubs and clubs were filling up all round them with teens and young people from every subculture, disco kids in bright satin and sequins, grimy skinheads in suspenders and boots, old-school rockers with shaggy hair, and punks with studded jackets and faces full of metal. Finally, as they were coming up on Latimer Road, Remus stopped still. There, he said, pointing across the darkening street to a building with blacked-out windows and steps leading down into a basement. Loud music was pounding up onto the street. Whoever the band was, they had little regard for their instruments, and even less for the audience's eardrums. He's in there, Remus said firmly. The compass confirmed this, pointing straight ahead. The basement looked a bit livelier than Remus was comfortable with. As well as the music, loud shouts and screams were blaring from inside. East End accents, teenage rage. Skinny, yellow-toothed punks stood outside in packs, green spiky hair and heavy bike chains. Remus felt horribly vulnerable in his own worn-out corduroys and oversized grandad shirt, but Sirius was even more out of place with his long hippie hair and unmistakably well-bred posture. "Shall we go in?" Sirius asked without a trace of nerves. Remus said. He was about to suggest that he go alone when fate intervened. Sling your hook, you fancy Nancy boy!" The bouncer was yelling at a young man who was staggering out into the street, head bent, hand in pockets. He had a mass of dirty blonde hair and a scent that Remus would know anywhere on earth. "Grant!" Remus bolted toward him, running across the road without even looking. Grant didn't hear and was making his way slowly down the street, hunched over. There was something wrong with the way he was walking. His gait twisted and skewed. He reeked of cheap gin, even standing meters away. The punks were leering at him, yelling vile obscenities to chase him off. Grant turned and sneered back, throwing up 2 fingers and warbling incoherently. "Grant!" Remus said again, catching him up beneath a yellow streetlight. Grant finally stopped and turned, squinting. The wall behind him had been spray-painted with various disparate slogans. "Eat the rich," "Buzz kids and the girl next door," "Don't want to play in your Cold War," "Fuck national service." "Jesus Christ, what are you doing here?" Grant lurched and wobbled, drunk, leaned against a wall and clutched side, as if something was hurting him there. "Looking for you." Remus walked up to him, trying to see his face obscured by shadow. "Right, obviously. Bloody hell, how do you manage it every time?" Grant shook his head. He didn't look good. He looked dreadful. He was thin, thinner than he should be, thinner than was really healthy. His hair was lank and looked as if it hadn't been washed in a while, and he had a patchwork of bruises down one side of his face, disappearing under his shirt, purple and ugly. "What happened to you?" "Fucking punk happened, didn't it?" Grant laughed, a horrid choking sound, then staggered again and sat on the pavement. "Sorry, mate. Bit dizzy." He retched a few times, but nothing came up, so he spat. Remus squatted beside him, hands trembling. "Who did this? Did it happen in there?" He leaned over, trying to get a proper look at Grant's poor, battered face. It was definitely Grant, but he was changed almost beyond recognition. Gone was the bright blue denim and cheeky grin Remus remembered, replaced by torn black drainpipes, haunted sallow eyes, nasty-looking piercings in his nose, eyebrow, lip that were definitely infected. "You're off!" Grant swung out, wildly, drunkenly. He wouldn't have hit Remus, and it wouldn't have hurt if he had, but Sirius leapt forward in an instant. "Oi, back off, mate!" Grant blinked and looked up at Sirius, raising a hand to shield his eyes from the brightness of the street lamps. He frowned, then sneered. "Who the fuck are you? Piss off, will ya? I'm talking to my mate." He turned to Remus. "Fancy a pint?" and tried to haul himself back to his feet. Remus helped him, gripping him firmly under the elbow. "I don't think you need any more to drink. How about some dinner?" A flash of sobriety returned to Grant's features. "Got cash?" "Yeah, of course," Remus nodded, trying to guide him away from the horrible street they were on. "Come on, I'll buy you dinner. What would you like?" You know me. I'm easy." Grant cackled, leaning heavily against him, but at least allowing himself to be led. Sirius followed, looking uncomfortable. Grant didn't even notice they'd reached a cafe, until they reached a cafe somewhere up the road. Sobering up a bit by then, he was still leaning on Remus, and Remus could hear a strange hitch in his breath that told him Grant was in pain. "In here." "In here?" Remus turned to Sirius, questioning. Sirius glanced at the illuminated window, the cheap plastic chairs inside, with a faint look of disdain, but shrugged. "Probably the best we'll find around here." "You again," Grant grumbled. "Thought I told you to nap off." "Grant," Remus said gently. "This is Sirius, my friend from school." Grant did a double take, narrowing his eyes. Or eye, anyway. Only one of them opened properly. "Well, fuck me," he murmured, still swaying. "Proper stunner." Sirius looked embarrassed, so Remus herded Grant into the cafe to sit down, ordering 3 cups of tea and a pie and chips, chicken and mushroom. I don't want no trouble from you," the burly man behind the counter said as he set the mugs of greyish tea down. "I know your types." "Piss off, you dirty old man," Grant slurred. "Bet you'd pay for it if you could." "What did I say?" "Look," Remus stood up quickly. "He's sobering up. I'll keep him quiet, I swear. I'll pay it up front. He'll be okay once he's eating." The large man looked at him appraisingly. His eyes flicked to Sirius, still seated, then Grant, then back to Remus. "What are you, Christian Outreach?" "What are you, Christian Outreach?" "Sort of," Remus nodded, trying to look religious, whatever religious looked like. Anyway, it satisfied the cafe owner, who lumbered back behind his counter, presumably to heat up their food. Caw, Grant laughed into his tea. You get posher by the bloody year, Remus, me old mucker. Will you just stop trying to fight everyone for 5 minutes? Grant blew a raspberry, then giggled. When the food arrived, Grant tucked in as if he hadn't eaten in weeks. Remus hoped that wasn't true, but judging by the state of his bony frame, things didn't look good. The pie and chips were demolished in minutes, and Remus ordered a Bakewell tart for afters, as well as some more tea. Where are you living? He asked, hoping he sounded kind and not accusatory. What are you doing in that club? Getting bladdered. Getting bladdered, Grant murmured. He was calmer now that he'd eaten, slower and more pliant. Well, you've achieved that. The bruises. Grant looked up, suddenly right at Remus. He was stone-cold sober, his eyes sharp and wide, as if Remus's face was a mirror and he was seeing himself for the first time. He touched his grubby fingers to the marred side of his cheek. Got into an altercation a few days ago, he said. But fuck it, I'm off tomorrow, going down to Brighton. Sick of bloody London. Sick of bloody miserable fucking London. Everyone wants to get at you, do you over, any way they can. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, Remus breathed. He felt so helpless. He wanted to look to Sirius for reassurance, but it seemed somehow disrespectful to Grant. How's school, bosh snob? Grant asked, slurping his tea like a builder. Oh, fine. What's in Brighton? Somewhere to live? A job? How are you getting there? Got friends. Grant shrugged, then winced. He'd broken a rib, Remus realised, and scolded himself for not having noticed earlier. Do you need to go to a hospital? How long have you been like this? No hospitals, Grant mumbled, curling up in his seat protectively. I think I'm a skaghead. Probably look like one, do I? I went to Mile End. I saw ads. That cunt. He can fuck right off and all. Look, lend me a tenner, will ya? I'm good for it. Give me your address and I'll pay you back. Not if you're just going to go get drunk on it. Oi, Mr. High and Mighty. I'll have you know I deserve a good drink. I've had me heart broken. You remember what that's like. He gave Sirius a less than subtle glare. Sirius, to his credit, didn't react but stared at the sugar bowl. Someone had put their cigarette out in it. I'm really sorry, Grant, Remus said sincerely. Look, where are you sleeping at the moment? Up the road. Is it safe there? Lost the key. Well, thought Remus to himself, at least there's a lock. He'd been halfway to deciding to smuggle Grant back to Diagon Alley and just facing the consequences when they got caught. They ordered more tea and Grant ate some more. Once he'd finished, he'd grown agreeably soft and sleepy, drunk on a full stomach. Sirius and Remus helped him back to his room in an old Edwardian terrace which looked as though it had been abandoned for years. Still, inside was busier than homelier than the condemned Mile End building. A young woman peered out of the next room along, mousy, freckle-faced at odds with her gunge green mohawk. Grant? God, you pissed again? I told you vodka's not a fucking painkiller to go to a bloody doctor. She looked up at Remus. Who are you? A friend. I'm just trying to make sure he's okay. He'll be fine, he gets like this. Sirius performed a silent unlocking charm on Grant's door, and Remus half carried Grant inside, settling him as carefully as he could on the single mattress on the floor. It was a small room with one tiny round window. Unfurnished, there was a stack of magazines in one corner, with a lamp perched on top, a rucksack stuffed with clothes, a mirror which was rusting round the edges, and what looked like a small washing station, a bar of soap, a toothbrush, an empty bowl. Grant curled up on the mattress and began to snore softly. Remus knelt beside him, frowning. The punk girl stood in the doorway, arms folded, looking serious up and down. He says he's going to Brighton tomorrow, Remus said to her. Is that true? If he got the money together for his train fare, she shrugged. Said it got nicked last week. He was seeing this really rough type. Treated him like shit. Poor love. He'll have the money, Remus said firmly. Will you make sure he goes? It'll be safe. Well, I'm not his keeper, she shrugged, backing out. I've got enough problems. Charming, Sirius said with a raised eyebrow as she vanished back in the next room. Shut the door, Remus said, pulling out his wand. He wanted to fix as much as he could while Grant was still sleeping. He ran through his list of healing spells. He'd only done them on himself so far, but nothing had gone very badly wrong. What the hell are you doing? Sirius came over as Remus aimed his wand at Grant's chest. What about the Statute of Secrecy? Bugger that, Remus grunted. I can't just leave him like this. Sirius stepped back and watched as Remus did his best to heal Grant's ribs, then clear up the bruises and blackened eye. Afterwards he leaned back, mind racing. He turned to Sirius. Right, I think I need to stay here tonight, he said. I could leave him some money, but I think it's better if I make sure he gets to Brighton tomorrow, if that's still what he wants to do when he's sober. Right, Sirius nodded. We've got to get to King's Cross, though. Yeah, I'll be on time. I can just apparate from Victoria. Okay. Sirius nodded again. He sat down, leaning against the opposite wall. He took off his jacket and folded it underneath himself. What are you doing? Remus asked. You need to go back to Diagon Alley. No, I don't. Sirius shrugged. I can stay. But James... Oh, yeah, right. Hang on. Sirius reached into his pocket and pulled out the compact mirror. Remus gazed at it enviously. He wished he'd had one. He'd give it to Grant and never lose him again. Oi, Potter, you there? Bronx! Sirius was speaking into the device. Hiya. Look, me and Mooney are going to a gig here. We'll be in late. Don't tell anyone, okay? See you tomorrow. Yeah. No, I promise. Okay, cheers. He snapped it closed and looked at Remus. There, done. You didn't have to do that. If you're worried about leaving me with him, I'm really just making sure he's okay. And I'm making sure you're okay, Remus, Sirius replied coolly. I'm not leaving you alone. I'm not leaving you to spend all night alone in this place. Come on, let's get comfortable. Plenty of floor to go around. Remus's guilt soared even higher then, as Sirius gave him a bright grin and extended an arm toward him. His last night before school, spent on the floor of some muggle halfway house, and he wasn't even complaining about it. Remus sat down too and slouched down to settle under Sirius's arm. At least they were together now. Sirius kissed his head, and they both watched Grant, sleeping like a child. I'm sorry, Remus said, exhausted. He's not... I don't want you to think he usually acts this way. He's obviously had a bad time. What happened to him? Sirius asked very quietly. What happened to make him end up here, like this? He got kicked out of St. Edmund's 2 years ago. Remus yawned, his eyes growing heavy. Didn't have anywhere else to go. Can't get a job because he didn't do his exams at school. And I'm guessing he hasn't got a proper address. Remus? This wouldn't happen to you, would it? Because you've got us. Yeah, he murmured sleepily, only half paying attention. I've got you, Padfoot. Don't worry about me.
Good friends go a long way, I guess.
Right?
Or Grant.
Poor Grant, indeed.
I knew he was going to show up, though.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people did. We were speculating.
We were waiting for it. Yep.
Because kept getting the name drops.
Yes.
And speaking of names, hello Vem.
Hello Angela.
Tyrion, or no, not Tyrion.
Tyron.
I read it quick. I thought it was Tyrion. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Your name's Tyrion too. Welcome. I know that poor sugar bowl. What sort of restaurant just who walks by and sees a cigarette put out in the sugar bowl and doesn't just like
say anything?
Yeah, or change the sugar out.
I don't know.
I guess that it's a good indication of what type of town they're in.
Yeah, this is just a really terrible area, I think. Hello, Melanie.
Melanie,
Welcome.
welcome.
Yeah, Grant is having a hard time.
Yeah, real rough time.
Yep.
So what do you think is gonna happen? You think he's gonna get out?
Benjamin says, I watched all your stuff on twice the speed and finally caught up, and now you guys talk so slowly. Yeah. I don't know. I think they're gonna see him off. I think they're gonna get him to go, and then they're gonna see him off, and then they're gonna go to school, and then we will see Grant again later.
Yeah,
I think so.
maybe. I mean, hopefully. Hopefully they do that. They see him off, and then they run into him later on, and he's doing good.
Right?
And it's not like Voldemort goes on a killing spree, and then they find out that Grant was one of them. Or
He was
something.
in the line of fire.
Yeah.
Or he wasn't one of the muggles that Peter Pettigrew kills.
I was about to say, I wonder if they're gonna play that into it, where he was one of the Muggles.
I don't know. I hope not.
Where was it that the whole battle between Pettigrew and Sirius go down? I know they say where it happened, but I can't remember where.
I don't remember either.
There's some trivia for you.
Where did Peter Pettigrew and Sirius face off? It's a good question. I don't remember.
It'd be interesting if it was where Grant's going.
Down in Brighton?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
Could
remember.
definitely be setting that up then. Grant's doing good for himself, and then Peter Pettigrew
Literally ruins everyone's life.
That would honestly be awful, though. Grant would be having the worst time. Just one unfortunate event after the other.
His life would be so tragic. I think it was in London, but I'm not sure. See, I thought maybe it was in London too. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, that's too easy for me to remember. I was thinking, I don't know.
My hair is looking good. Are you going totally blonde? Well, no, the top of my head is still going to be brown. See, it's brown. This is going to be silver.
Yes, Targaryen style.
We're going Targaryen ombre. That's what we're doing.
Getting a little Game of Thrones action up.
Channeling my inner Dany Targaryen here.
Yeah.
It's what we're doing.
Lexitron Targaryen.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, wow, what a chapter.
This is why I said let's not read this one last time. Remember, we were going to read another one? Number one, this was super long. Number two, it was a bit of a bummer.
It was a bit of a bummer. It was a bit of a bummer.
With his Jack Sparrow compass.
Yeah. I think,
Oh, Malfoy hair.
A little bit. Yeah, I guess it is kind of Malfoy hair.
You got the Narcissa going on.
I'm rocking my Narcissa. Does that mean I get to marry Lucius?
Should I just leave? I guess. I'll go. It's fine. I understand.
Yeah, this is not a chapter I would have wanted to end on. For sure. Harry Potter fandom says London. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe Grant makes it out of this all right.
Yeah, maybe Grant will be okay. Maybe the story will end and Grant has a good life and a loving, caring husband and everything is fine.
Yes. Maybe.
And maybe he's like a house husband. And his husband is like a lawyer or something and he has a good life. He didn't do his exams. So, he doesn't have a lot of career prospects.
Maybe he'll go to a trade school.
Maybe he will. Okay.
Start up his own business or something.
Maybe. Maybe he'll have a house husband. Maybe his husband will be the house husband.
Yeah.
Either way, let's hope for good things for Grant after this, because Jesus Christ, this is terrible. Not good.
Robert, thank you for the subscription. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Robert Baratheon?
Robert Morell.
Oh, okay.
So, not quite.
All right.
I have a feeling that this Robert is much more sober.
Maybe.
You can't get much drunker than Robert Baratheon.
That's true.
That man was drunk from daybreak to dusk.
I don't even think he like Hagrid could compete with him. I think Hagrid would have a hard time keeping up.
I think Hagrid and Robert Baratheon would have a great time.
I think they would.
Until Robert Baratheon wants to hunt everything. And
in the Forbidden Forest.
That's my pet. You can't hunt that.
That's my pet.
Can't hunt that. You can definitely not hunt that.
Yep. Can you imagine Robert Baratheon trying to hunt the centaurs?
Hunt Aragog.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah. And then just sprinkle a little slughorn in there. Just for flavor.
Just for flavor. Just for the sweetness.
I would do a Renaissance fair with Hagrid and Robert. I don't think I could make it.
Oh, that would be fun to do. Cosplay Hagrid and Robert Baratheon and then go to a Renaissance fair.
That'd be fantastic, yeah. I couldn't do that with you, though.
Well, no.
Well, I guess I could. I'd have to be Robert. You'd have to be Hagrid.
But I'm bigger. So.
You're bigger, so I'd have to be Robert. I'm trying to picture myself as Robert Baratheon. It's
gonna have to get you a fake beard.
I need a fake beard. I'd need to put like a pillow in my clothes to give myself a big beer belly.
Warhammer.
Yep.
Be great.
Robert Baratheon.
No, should just have carry just a spear, and then we could dress Bailey up as a boar.
Oh yeah.
A little boar outfit.
You get a boar outfit.
Just following us around. So what do you think is going to happen in the next chapter?
It's either that or we'd dress Bailey up as Fluffy.
Yeah, that's true.
He could dress up like Fluffy. I think they're going to go to school now.
Do you think he's going to make it? Or do you think it's going to be a Chamber of Secrets incident where they're going to have to find an alternative route to school? They're going to miss the train.
Oh, that's a good question.
They don't have a flying car, so...
Yes, but Remus could apparate.
You can't apparate to Hogwarts.
Could apparate to...
Hogsmeade, yeah.
He could apparate to Hogsmeade. He could apparate to King's Cross.
I'm saying, what if they miss that?
The train specifically? Yeah, they could apparate to Hogsmeade.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, that kind of... All my ideas
I took it away. I'm sorry.
Crashed and burned.
I'm sorry. Maybe Remus wouldn't be confident enough to apparate to Hogsmeade.
Maybe they will apparate and one of them gets splinched.
Maybe. That would be true Book 7 form.
I say we find out.
Okay. They could take the night bus.
Could take the night bus. It'd be interesting to see the interpretation of the night bus.
Right. Stan obviously doesn't work there yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, who would be driving the night bus? Stan's father, Dan.
Dan Shunpike. All right.
Stan Sr.
Chapter 119. 7th year. Back to school. For a horrible moment, just as he woke up, Remus forgot where he was. He took in the stuffy air, the faint whiff of rotten newspaper, body odor, and urine. He took in the hard floor, which had exacerbated his various aches and pains overnight. Then he opened his eyes and saw Grant lying on the mattress opposite, staring back at him. He looked a bit better. "Morning," Grant mouthed. "Morning," Remus replied, moving against Sirius, who was still fast asleep, head back against the wall. He peeled himself away carefully and whispered to Grant, "Don't worry, he sleeps like the dead. I'll wake him up in a bit." "I can't remember much," Grant whispered, lying on his side, head resting on a pillow which looked dirty and stained. "Sorry if I was a knob. I think I am a bit of a knob these days." "You were fine," Remus shook his head. "Just sad, maybe." Grant looked stricken, so Remus moved to get up. "Lou?" he asked. "Downstairs, I'll show you." Grant pulled himself up gingerly, then looked amazed. "Blimey," he said, patting his side. "Must have been a bruise after all. Knew I didn't need no doctor." Remus pursed his lips and followed Grant out. Downstairs was already alive with activity, despite the early hour. The house seemed to be a kind of commune, full of all kinds of different people. There was an outhouse in the back garden, more like a yard that had been turned into an allotment, and an outdoor shower, which Remus couldn't imagine was much fun in winter. Still, the people were friendly and all said hello to the two boys as they passed, which Remus remarked upon. "Everyone seems nice." "They're all right," Grant replied from inside the loo. "Only been here a few days, leaving as soon as I can." "For Brighton? You mentioned that last night." "Oh, did I? Well, that was the plan." Grant came out of the outhouse looking sheepish. "Maybe next month, though." "What's there, friends?" Grant nodded. "Yeah, one of the nicer lads from the Moyle End place. Got a cousin there too, a lass Chapman who don't hate me. She owns a pub. Said she'd hired me if I could get my shit together and pay the train fare." He sighed heavily, washing his hands, then face in a bucket of water taken from a big green water butt standing by the back door. "Supposed to prove myself." "That doesn't seem very—" What did Remus want to say? Familial? Kind? Grant had clearly experienced very little of either. "Nah, she's fair enough," Grant replied, feeling in his pockets and coming up empty. Remus handed over his own tin of roll-ups and the lighter. Grant nodded appreciatively and continued explaining as he lit up. "I've let her down a few times before. Mostly if Grandad was involved. You know, I can't stick him." Remus nodded, trying to be understanding. Grant had a huge family, Irish Catholic, he'd said once, but relations between them were often fraught, particularly where his patriarchal grandfather was concerned. "Don't get me wrong," Grant was saying. "I was really going, this time I was, but it just turned out wrong again. A lot's turned out wrong, to be honest." Remus wanted to hug him, but he looked so thin, so wiry and prickly, it made him afraid to. "How much is it?" he asked, digging into his pockets. "I've got a bit of money left by my dad. You can have the fare. I'll take you to the station today." "Couldn't do that." Grant held up his hands. "Not to keep, obviously," Remus said quickly. "You owe me. Look, I've got one more year of school. Then I'll come and find you, and you'll have been working in your cousin's pub, right? So you can pay me back. How much? Tenner?" £4, Grant sighed. "I had £4 last week too, but I lost it. I didn't drink it, I promise." £4? I can lend you that, that's fine." "Are you serious?" Grant stared at him, blinking. "Of course," Remus nodded, frowning slightly. "Why not? Why not? You do the same for me." "Alright." Grant shook his head, then pressed the heel of his hand into one eye, as if overcome with emotion. "Thanks, Remus. You're such a good mate." "You do the same for me," Remus replied. It occurred to him for the first time that he and Grant were actually the same age. Grant had always been so knowing, so streetwise, so protective, that Remus had considered him older, more mature. But he was only 17, and life had been as cruel to Grant as it had to Remus. Perhaps even more cruel, because after all, Remus knew in his heart he would never be homeless. He would never be alone while the Marauders were there. He needed to learn to stop putting people on pedestals, stop expecting so much from everybody. He stepped forward then and hugged the other boy, minding not to burn himself on the cigarette. When you get so tall anyway, Grant laughed, muffled under Remus's arm. Don't, Remus chuckled, pulling back. Sirius teases me all the time. Sirius? Grant shook his head in amazement. Sirius and Remus. Bloody hell, is it him? That posh lad that broke your heart? Yeah. It's okay now, though. I hope so, Remus, mate. There was time for Grant to pack his meagre possessions and for Sirius and Remus to take him for breakfast at a small cafe in Victoria Station. You gonna make me fat? He said to Remus as he scoffed down his second bacon butty. No chance, Remus said, prodding him in the ribs. Sirius had been quiet all morning, but he never did function well on a poor night's sleep. He looked only slightly rumpled, his hair a little less lustrous than usual, his eyes a bit foggy. Remus could tell that he was still fascinated by the sights and sounds of Muggle London, only of course he couldn't explain that to Grant. Grant regarded Sirius with a similar wariness. He apologized for his behavior the night before and tried to explain that they caught him on a bad night. He seemed meeker in front of Sirius, less cheeky, perhaps perceiving him as a social superior and therefore mildly dangerous. Remus well remembered how alien Potter and Black had been to him once upon a time. You two got your own train to catch, eh? Grant said, his eyes flicking to Sirius, then Remus, then back again. Yeah, but we've got time, Remus said. Here, I want to give you this. He handed Grant a scrap of paper which held the Potter's address on it. It's where I'm living when I'm not at school. Will you send me a letter when you're settled? A postcard. Promise. Yeah, all right, Grant nodded, tucking it away. Warning you, though, my handwriting's shit and I can't spell for toffee. I don't care about that. I just want to know where you are next time. Do you need stamps? I should have thought of stamps. I can get stamps. Grant touched his arm. You've done enough, honest. They hugged him again on the platform. Grant shook Sirius's hand, which was weird, but polite of him. I'll come and visit at Christmas, maybe, or next summer, Remus said. I bloody well believe you, too. Can't get rid of you, can I? Grant grinned, his first genuine smile so far. It made Remus feel somewhat easier. Like magnets, you and me, eh? Always snap right back together. This hit Remus in such a way that he had to hug Grant again until the other boy laughed and pushed him away. All right. I've got a train to catch, you know. And of course, so did Remus and Sirius. As soon as Grant had disappeared through the train doors, they bolted toward the gentlemen toilets to apparate to King's Cross. Inside the cubicle, Sirius finally spoke. He touched Remus's arms where Grant had only been a few minutes ago. You look exhausted. Let me do it. You can side along. Really? Remus could have said that he was no more tired than Sirius, who had put up with just as much as he had, but that would have been a lie. He was too tired to argue even. Really? Sirius nodded, taking his arm. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for helping him. Don't be silly. Sirius gave him a small smile. He loves you. But Remus had no chance to finish his thought. He was spinning through space, noise and colour blurring as he and Sirius left Victoria and landed, fairly gracefully, just outside of King's Cross. They had no choice but to run for the platform and found James hanging out the train door, waving frantically. Fucking hell, where have you been? Language? Lily's face poked out of the window along. You're head boy now. You should be setting an example. I am setting an example. Telling these wankers off, James retorted as Remus and Sirius clambered onto the train just as the guard's whistle blew. Language, Lily said again. Honestly, James, you really need to start growing up this year. You're of age. You need to start acting. Isn't she brilliant? James beamed at Remus, who was now sitting on the floor of the carriage, catching his breath. Sirius was bent over, hands on his knees, looking shockingly unserious, red in the face, hair everywhere. James regarded them both, folding his arms, gold head boy and Quidditch captain badges glinting on his dark robes. So, where were you? Told you. Gig, Sirius huffed. Which band? You don't know 'em. Muggle band. Why didn't you come back last night? Where did you sleep? Sirius flashed a nervous look at Remus, and Remus could see he was on the verge of spilling everything. He stood up quickly. "We didn't sleep. It went on all night. We had breakfast and came straight here." Sirius stared at him in amazement before nodding along. James shook his head. "Mental. And dangerous. Seriously, lads, don't do that again." "Won't," Sirius murmured, looking at his feet. Lily appeared in the corridor, hands on her hips, looking beautiful and terrifying. "Potter," she said, "we've got to lead the meeting." "Right you are," James grinned, forgetting all about his two out-of-breath friends, following the redhead away toward the prefect's carriage. "See you later, boys," he called absent-mindedly. "You really are a good liar," Sirius said to Remus. Maybe it was lack of sleep or pain in his hip, but this statement rubbed Remus the wrong way. "What's that supposed to mean?" he snapped. "Nothing." Sirius looked down again. "Come on, let's find Pete." Peter was sitting with Mary, Marlene and Dorcas in the carriage Lily had just exited. He looked a bit outnumbered as the girls were swapping tips for fingernail strengthening charms. "We thought you missed a train," Marlene said as Remus and Sirius entered. "You know me, McKinnon." Sirius gave his most charming grin. "Like to make an entrance." "And now you're dragging poor Remus down with you," Mary laughed. "Come sit here, Lupin. I'll protect you from that delinquent." She budged up in her seat to make room by the window. Remus took the space gratefully. "Where were you?" Peter asked. "You left me all alone with Lily and James. I might as well have been a ghost." "Gig. Stayed out late. Didn't sleep." Sirius waved a hand, yawning. He sat opposite Remus and folded his arms, leaning tiredly against the window. The train began to move and Remus closed his eyes, because he was exhausted, but also because that way he didn't have to answer any more questions about where he'd been. The girls began to speak more quietly and he eventually drifted off to sleep. When he woke up, they were already in Scotland, the dark rolling hills whooshing past, a smattering of rain hitting the windows. Sirius was curled up on the seat opposite him, completely hidden under everyone else's cloaks. Remus could hear him breathing evenly. Fast asleep. Mary was just sliding the door open as Remus stretched, waving at her sleepily. She smiled and waved back, but looked serious. Marlene frowned. "What's up?" "I just saw Lily," Mary whispered. "Something happened in the prefect's carriage." She glanced over at Sirius, still just a lump underneath the cloaks, and lowered her voice even further so that Remus and Marlene had to lean in. "James and Regulus got into a fight. They're both okay, but it got quite nasty by the sounds of it. Regulus was saying some really crazy stuff. Lily was really shaken." "He's one of them," Marlene whispered, looking anxious. The Black family are you-know-who's strongest supporters. Everyone knows it." "Shh," Remus said quickly. "We don't know what it was about. It could have been anything." The girls fell quiet after that, but exchanged concerned looks with each other, and Remus could tell they thought he was being naive. He leaned back and looked out the window for a while, listening to Sirius's relaxed heartbeat, and worrying about Grant, and wishing more than ever that the worst was already behind them.
Oh no. Regulus is starting stuff.
Regulus is being a stinker.
After everyone tried to tell Sirius, look, you gotta try to like your brother a little bit more. He's trying. Now Sirius gets to turn around and... Ha! I told you so, Potter.
My brother sucks. Tried to tell you.
He's terrible. He'll never change. He's just like the rest of my family.
Yeah.
I mean, we know different.
We do. Well, at this point, Regulus is totally brainwashed, right? So,
well, he's still just a child.
Yeah, he's 16. He's totally brainwashed. And,
Isn't Regulus only like... I thought he was still in his teens when the whole thing with Creature goes down.
He's like 19, I think.
Is he?
I think so.
Okay.
He's young.
So we're only a few years off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're in their last year. And yeah, Regulus dies very young.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I thought it was teenage years, so 19 makes sense.
Yeah, 18, 19, something like that.
Mm.
Because they said he joined early and died young. Yes, Regulus. A true
I
hero, but not being one right now.
see what you're going for with the cheers there to Regulus, but at the same time, maybe referencing drinking with Regulus isn't the right way to go.
Right,
Too soon.
right. Did Regulus die before James and Lily? Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
Regulus died during the war.
yeah.
The death of James and Lily ended it.
Mhm.
Um,
Or did he? Yeah, because uh,
because Voldemort,
Voldemort
used Creature.
uses creature.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he
yeah.
goes back. So Voldemort
So-
has to be alive.
Yeah, Regulus passed away before James
yeah.
and Lily.
That was Voldemort's last words to Regulus. Cheers.
Mhm.
Drink up.
So, I think it's funny that Sirius tells him it's very obvious that Grant loves you.
Yeah.
Like Sirius can see it, plain as day, and Grant is just like, we're just two magnets that just keep coming together.
Mm-hmm. Maybe everything that happened with Grant, this whole downward spiral he had, was all because Lupin broke his heart.
I mean,
I didn't really think about it being that. I mean, I know he was like hurt when Lupin left and everything, but seems like everything is caused by Lupin.
Grant did say he had his heart broken.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Grant sees now that Lupin has the posh boy,
Yeah. Things worked out for Lupin.
and um, Grant had told him like it's not going to work out with him. It doesn't work out with those types of boys, and even now, like Grant's like pretty much like, okay, you got him. You guys are together, and he's just like, I hope for your sake it works out. Like
Mhm.
Grant loves him to pieces, but he's gracious and big enough to say, well, I hope,
Wish you two the best.
yeah, I hope that you're happy and that this does work out for you.
Right?
Grant is a great character.
One of those characters that you don't see much of, but just enough to make you root for him.
I think that's one of the best. What did I get on my hand? I think that Grant is actually one of the best parts of this fan fiction, because every other character in this story is a character that exists within the Harry Potter universe, except for him. She had to completely make him up, and
Yeah.
who he is and how he fits into the story is really, really well done. It's great.
Right? How much time passed between Creature and the cave? I don't think it was very much. Because I think, doesn't Creature, like, come back and he's all distraught over what happened?
Creature
and
comes back,
it
and
was near instantly, like...
Creature comes back, and Regulus finds out what happened, and then Regulus almost immediately, I think, figures out what's going on, and he goes to do it. I think the story that Creature tells him is Regulus's catalyst to, it's Horcruxes. There's a Horcrux in there.
Yeah.
And then he just goes to do it. I don't think there's that much time that passes between it based on how Creature tells the story. I don't think.
Well, the whole thing...
I think it was
seems
just
like
enough time for Regulus to figure out what he was going to do. And that was it.
Yeah, I don't think there was much planning in it.
No.
It was all just...
A little bit of an emotional decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Rest in peace, Regulus.
Rest in peace, Regulus. You're probably going to be kind of a terrible character in the next few chapters, but...
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe we'll get a little more Snape.
Maybe we'll run into Creature.
Maybe we will run into Creature.
But no, because Sirius isn't gonna ever go back to the house.
Yeah, that's true. Unless the family sends Creature to him for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Then we probably won't see him.
Oh.
Oh no.
Well, what do you think is going to happen in the next chapter? Do you think the Marauders are going to get together for another prank on the Slytherins?
I
Or
think
Regulus specifically?
they're all gonna go see Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
The next chapter's called Thunder.
Oh, okay. I understood that reference.
I think
The lightning and the thunder.
I think the next chapter is going to be like a this is what's happening at school chapter, and this is what's going on. I think it's going to be them settling into school, but with the element of the war going on and how it's impacting things at the school.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the idea of thunder, it's the reverberation of the lightning strike and everything going on. It's probably going to be the whole Voldemort movement and ideology kind of reverberating throughout the school, and
Yeah.
Slytherins are going to get a little bit meaner, and
Yeah.
Muggleborns are going to get a little bit more stressed.
I feel like we're going to find out too, like, what happened, what did Regulus say, I'm sure he was probably just talking shit about Muggleborns.
Yeah.
I dance, magic dance.
Yes, very, very frightening. Or maybe they were going to go see some AC/DC.
Maybe.
Fun drinking game you can do with that too. Just so you know.
Oh, okay.
No, you've never played it? The Thunder drinking game?
No.
You sit in a circle, you play the song, and every time they say thunder, you drink. And then when they say thunder again, you stop drinking. The person next to you goes until they say thunder again.
Oh.
You go around the circle doing that.
The Thunderstruck song?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Of course I know that Bowie song. I love Labyrinth.
The thing is, it's the 13th thunder. There's like a straight minute where between thunders. So we figured that out, and any time, we'd figure out who was there.
Who was getting the shittiest faced.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Made sure that we were not positioned at that spot.
Particular moment in time.
So what else?
I don't know. This is a good chapter. This was a good chapter.
Yes.
I liked the undertones of Grant's feelings for Remus, and Sirius being very supportive and stuff, and Sirius being very perceptive.
Grant being very supportive.
Yes, and Grant being very supportive, and Sirius being very perceptive.
Yeah. Well, we know Sirius is a very intelligent character.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't act like one a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes he does stupid things. A lot of the times. Yeah, no, those songs were not around in the 70s.
Yeah, those were 80s songs.
Yeah, we were just I was just being silly.
Well,
yeah, David Bowie was. Yeah.
I was about to say David Bowie was.
I think Labyrinth came out in the 80s.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I thought so. Dark Crystal, Labyrinth. So that's 80s Jim Henson era stuff.
Maybe not though, because I'm really bad with that stuff. I mean, I thought Jaws came out in the 80s.
1975, I think.
I know.
But anyway.
Anyways, we got time for another chapter?
Yeah, I'm down to do another chapter. I just have to use the bathroom first.
All right.
I need to just take a quick couple minutes. And
Okay.
Use the loo. And then yes.
All right. Well, I will get another drink. So, quick intermission, stretch your legs, be back in like a minute. Very important not to sit too long. Oh, Labyrinth was 1986? See, I I'm surprised because I thought it was going to be early 80s, or maybe we were just wrong and it was like late 70s, but 1986. Oh man, Dan, I'm jealous. I could go for some brownies right now. Now, are these brownies or special brownies? What? Like I said, yeah. Yeah, see, I thought it was like around 83 or something, but how little I know. I'm good with dates with certain things, but when it comes to movies, like I don't know. Oh, spicy brownies. See, I've never made or eaten a spicy brownie, but that's very intriguing because I do like spicy chocolate. Um, I can't remember the company. I had a really good chocolate one time. It was jalapeno chocolate. It was so good, but it actually had like little chunks of jalapeno in this chocolate bar, and it was mind blowing. I always thought it would be like really good to melt the chocolate down, like on ice cream or something, or even make hot chocolate with it. Ah, okay, you've had it. Yeah, jalapeno chocolate is just there's something about it. Something about spice and chocolate that just go together so well. Especially like dark chocolate. When you get like that really bitter chocolate. I might be kind of weird on that though, because I'm not a huge fan of super sweet things. Ooh, a spicy chocolate chili. See, I was actually talking about making some chili for dinner tonight, and now you really make me want to just like throw a chocolate bar in there just to try it, just to see how it is. Although I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. A negative 15,000 points from one judge. Okay, maybe I won't try that. I think it's funny how popular like chili contests are. Like you really don't have contests for many different types of food, but there's one contest everyone knows about. It's chili. Oh, really? The bell pepper ruins it? See, I really like bell peppers, but you gotta um have like charred them. Throw them under a broiler or on a grill, get them nice and black and cook through. Oh, totally changes. I could also talk about like cooking and food all day though. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. No raw bell pepper. Not a fan of that. I
You don't like raw bell peppers?
I mean, I do, but not really.
I like raw bell peppers. I'd eat them.
I'm not a huge fan.
I would eat them.
I Here's the thing. I'm fine with raw bell peppers, but raw bell peppers in comparison to like, you know, the like fire roasted bell peppers.
I'm just saying, if I chopped up a bunch of them with a little dip or a little something, I would eat them like carrot sticks.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of raw bell peppers like that. I don't think I would. But if there's like raw bell peppers in like
Like in a salsa
if
or
I
something?
make sausage, pepper, and onions, and maybe the bell peppers aren't all the way cooked or something or raw, I don't mind.
Gotcha.
But
Hi, Ren.
I won't choose to eat raw bell peppers. Let's just say that.
Okay, that was a very long explanation about your preference, lack thereof, for raw bell peppers.
It was. I don't know why I like had to felt like I had to defend that so much, but
Yeah, you really felt the need to do that.
did.
I'm not sure why, but that's okay. That's all right. Oh,
And yes, hello Ren. Welcome.
um,
Perfect timing because we were just about to begin
another chapter. Yes, we shall. Here we go. Are we ready? One more chapter of all the young dudes. It's kind of perfect because we're on.
Oh yeah, this is Thunder.
So this is chapter 120. So then after this, we only have 68.
Man, we're getting close.
We're getting close. We're almost done. Chapter 120. 7th year. Thunder. Neither Remus nor Peter, who'd also been in the carriage, said anything to Sirius about Mary's intel. Peter probably kept quiet because he wasn't sure how valuable the information was. Remus kept quiet because he was a coward, and if there had to be bad news, he preferred that James delivered it. And sure enough, James appeared to meet them all on the train platform with a very red-looking eye and a rumpled school uniform. "What happened to you?" Sirius yawned, oblivious. "Tell you later," James murmured, before jogging over to join Lily in herding the first years in the right direction. It was still raining slightly and growing dark outside already. Remus was very glad not to be crossing the lake. Still, it was bittersweet climbing into the horseless carriages one last time with Sirius, Mary, and Marlene. Peter decided to follow the honey and get in with Dorcas and her friends. As they pulled into the castle courtyard, Remus looked up at the towering stone and wondered if this would be his final memory of arriving at Hogwarts. Perhaps they would all be back for a reunion party in 10 years. That was a pleasant thought, though 1987 seemed completely impossible right then. Remus tried to pay close attention to the sorting ceremony, the nervous line of tiny first years, the battered old hat, McGonagall's stern but caring countenance. He tried to imprint every moment in his memory, but it wasn't easy. There were so many distractions. First there was James's eye, which he still not explained. Then there was Regulus, who was conspicuously absent. Snape, glowering as always, his eyes never leaving the back of Lily Evans's head. Christopher, who kept trying to catch Remus's eye, and Sirius, who was completely unaware of everything and simply thrilled to be back at Hogwarts, his true home. Remus was trying to enjoy Sirius's good mood without looking too much like he was staring. It was a real art. Just as Dumbledore announced that dinner was served, the doors at the back of the hall flew open. All heads turned to see, except for Remus, who only needed to see the smile die on Sirius's face to know who it was. Regulus did not hurry to his seat, as Remus probably would have, embarrassed to draw attention. No, Regulus was a black through and through, and walked with his usual regal bearing, slowly and with purpose, head held high. There was no evidence that James had done any damage, but Remus thought that Reg was looking even paler than usual, and dark round the eyes, as if he'd lost a lot of sleep lately. The 6-year Slytherins made a big show of making room for him, as if he were the guest of honour, rather than their schoolmate. Even Snape's attention was momentarily diverted, as he leaned across to shake Regulus's hand. All of this took up only a few moments, but it left an indelible mark on the Gryffindor 7th years, as they eyed Sirius warily. "Mate," James said very quietly, "I need to tell you something in private. Later." He glanced up at Remus and Peter as he said this, so they knew they were included in this. Sirius just nodded and kept his head down for the rest of the meal, only picking at his food. Remus's heart ached, but there was nothing he could do. His sense of separation was inadvertently exacerbated by Lily and James, who kept squeezing each other's hands under the table. Remus didn't know when he and Sirius would next have the chance to be alone. After dinner, it was an almost unbearable wait for Lily and James to finish up their new duties as head boy and girl. Remus was nodding in his armchair, failing to focus on his Care of Magical Creatures NEWT text, eyelids growing heavier and heavier. "Psst, Moony!" James woke him up, finally, with a gentle shake. "Come on, we're all going up." Remus blinked, staring about himself in surprise. The common room was almost empty. Upstairs in their bedroom, all of their trunks had arrived, their beds were made and pyjamas laid out. Rain was still battering the window panes, and Remus could smell a storm on its way, electricity and pressure making the air feel too thick and too close. Hang on, we have you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sirius was pacing, and though a window was open, the room stank of cigarettes from his chain smoking. He'd showered at some point, and his hair was still damp at the ends, dripping onto the maroon t-shirt he wore to bed. Peter was just coming out of the bathroom, already in his pyjamas and smelling faintly of toothpaste. "You didn't wake me up," Remus said neutrally to Sirius. Sirius shrugged carelessly, sitting down on his bed. "You looked comfortable. Thought you could probably do with the rest." He turned to James. "Well?" "It's about Regulus," James said, not beating round the bush. "He give you that?" Sirius nodded at James's now very prominent black eye. "Yeah," James nodded. He looked angry, a strange emotion on James. "Yeah, we had a few words in the prefect's carriage." "Words?" "Yeah." James's jaw was tight and the back of his neck flushed red. He flexed his wrists. "Seems like Regulus and some of his mates have a problem with Evans being head girl." "Oh, no," Peter said, realizing what had happened. "James, he didn't—" "He was all talk," James said. "But you weren't," Sirius said. He was still sitting on his bed, his shoulders slumped. "Prongs!" Remus sighed impatiently. "You didn't attack him first. You know that's exactly what the lot of them want from our side. You should have just ignored him." "He didn't make it very easy," James snapped, still wound up. "Anyway, don't bother. I've had all this from Lily." Remus wondered what she had to say. He couldn't imagine that she would have taken very kindly to James playing the White Knight. But then, Mary had said she'd been very shaken. "I didn't hurt him, anyway," James carried on. He'd begun to pace the room now that Sirius had stopped. "Just wanted him to shut up. I was going to use Silencio and maybe scourgify his mouth, you know, but the little weasel dodged it and just tried to get me back, so I used jelly legs. That's when Mulciber swung for me and Evans petrified all three of us, just for a few minutes. Still, I got Regulus, so he had to go up to the hospital wing, and it all got written up." "Are you in trouble?" Peter asked, chewing his fingernails. "Nah," James waved a hand. Loads of witnesses said Reg was asking for it, and in the end it was Gryffindor vs. Slytherin, so McGonagall and Slughorn agreed to give us a chance to be civil. He pulled a face at this. But is Reg okay? Sirius asked quietly. Yeah, fine, James nodded. He stopped moving and scratched his head awkwardly. There's something else, though. Sirius looked up, his arms folded across his body, but not in a defiant way, more as if to protect himself. What? Regulus, when Lily petrified him, he fell, and we had to lift him up onto a seat. He'd rolled his sleeves up to duel, and when I was moving him, I saw on his arm prongs. Sirius was staring at his friend with such a burning in his eyes that his pupils were twin flames. He looked desperate, as if willing James not to tell him. He's got the mark. Peter made a noise and sat down hard on his bed. Remus bit his lip and stayed still, because he couldn't think of anything else to do that wouldn't look suspicious. Sirius swallowed. Remus could see his Adam's apple bob, then look down, then back at James. Now he looked defiant. He gave another shrug, which was probably meant to be casual, except he was still hugging himself, so it looked petulant. He tossed his hair. Well then, he said. Suppose we know how my family spent this summer then. Fine. That's fine. He picked his side. I've picked mine. He nodded as if agreeing with himself. Fine, he repeated. Padfoot. James reached out to his friend. I'm angry with Reg, okay? I'm not... It's nothing to do with you. Everyone knows you're not one of them. I know, Sirius said, almost violently. It's fine. He squeezed his hands tighter over his arms, and Remus felt dizzy with the urge to run over and wrap his own arms round him. Is Evans okay? Yeah, she's fine, James said. I mean, I think she was hurt, but... Well, she's tougher than me. Cooler under pressure. Want me to have a word? With Reg, I mean? I'd leave it, mate. James shook his head. McGonagall and Slughorn know everything now. You'll only make it worse. Everything? Sirius looked up again. The rims of his eyes were red, but that might just be tiredness. Not everything, James admitted. Not about the mark. I wanted to leave that up to you. Okay. Sirius looked down again. They were all quiet for a long time, before James tried again, heroically. Do you want to talk about it? No, Sirius replied. I just want to go to bed. Yeah, good idea, James said, running his fingers through his hair. He was doing the usual James thing, taking charge, assessing and managing the serious thing, but the wind was obviously out of his sails. He wasn't sure what to do. Remus wished he could tell him, telepathically. He knew exactly the right thing, but it was a bad idea. No need to add his own nonsense to the pile. He would simply have to wait. They all got ready for bed quietly, unpacking a few things, reclaiming their space in the bathroom counter, settling back into the comfortable and familiar room in which they'd shared an entire childhood. Remus took a quick shower to wash London off him, then brushed his teeth and dressed for bed. When he opened the door again, he found the curtains drawn round all the beds except his own. Light snoring was coming from Peter's, but James and Sirius were still awake. If Remus concentrated very hard, he could even sense how they were lying, James on his back, tossing his lucky golden snitch up and down, Sirius curled up on his side, and how relaxed they were. Not at all. That felt like an invasion of privacy, though, so he just tried to creep as quietly as possible to his own four-poster, looking forward to a proper rest at last. No such luck. Remus. Sirius's head popped out from behind his curtains. Remus turned his head. Sirius? He whispered back. Sirius pulled back the curtain, and, after a quick glance at the other beds, Remus climbed in as neatly as he could. Inside it was pitch dark, but he could still see Sirius's warm outline kneeling before him. He twitched his wand. Sonoro quiesis. James isn't asleep yet, Remus cautioned. Are you sure you want me to... Yes, Sirius replied. Please stay, just for a bit. He reached out and grasped Remus's hand, squeezing it. Remus relented and finally put his arms around Sirius, pulling him closer. It was an immense relief. "I'm so sorry about Reg. He's not even of age." "I know." They pulled apart and sat cross-legged, facing each other. Sirius's head was bowed, his hair covering his face. He probably remembered how well Remus could see in the dark. "I can't believe... I know it's stupid. I should have known all along that he would, but... I don't know. I just suppose I just hoped he'd..." "It's not stupid," Remus said. "And we don't know he joined willingly. Remember what they did to you, when they wanted you to join him." Sirius flinched but didn't move away. "Yeah," he murmured. "I doubt it went that far with Reg. He always wanted it more than me. The whole circus, our parents' approval, the respect you get from purebloods for just being a black. We like to be popular and powerful. It only makes sense. That's why we're all Slytherins." "You're not a Slytherin." "No, I'm not." Sirius exhaled shakily. "I used to think..." "What?" "I used to think... maybe I didn't get sorted into Gryffindor because I'm brave or chivalrous like James is. Maybe I just wasn't welcome in Slytherin because I haven't got the ambition." "Ambition?" Remus stared at him. "Sirius, what Reg is doing, it's not anything to be proud of. It's cowardly. He's doing exactly what he's been raised to do, without thinking, without questioning." "Yeah, but... and you're the bravest person I know." "Moony." "Really?" Remus said this with such seriousness that it stopped Sirius in his tracks. "Thank you." Sirius smiled. He reached forward again, plucking the fabric of Remus's pyjama bottoms and sniffing slightly. "I thought that keeping quiet about you and me would be the hardest thing about this year," he said. "Forgot about this stupid war." "Yeah." Remus wasn't sure how to respond. He wished he could forget about the war too. Sirius looked up at him, sensing his unease. "It's still hard," he said. "Keeping this quiet." His fingers kept playing with the cuffs of Remus's trouser leg. "I feel like we're so far apart when the others are around." "We're pretty close now," Remus offered, hoping to cheer him up a bit. It worked. Sirius took this as an invitation and finally met his eye, grinning. He leaned over, and as their lips met, Remus forced himself to forget about everything else, just for a bit. Afterwards, they found themselves crawling under the covers for warmth, sleepy and affectionate. "I shouldn't get too comfortable," Remus yawned. "I'd better get back to my bed." "Not yet," Sirius whispered shyly. "Okay." His eyes were very heavy, though. He was in real danger of falling asleep. "Remus?" Tell me a secret." Sirius's fingers curled round his. I don't know. Go on. Something good. Happy. Perhaps now was the right time. He didn't like to bring up the Black family after all. It wasn't something... But after all, it wasn't something about Regulus or Walpurga. I could tell you about something I did my second year, if you won't get angry. What did you do? Promise me you won't get angry. It's a bit... Well, I remember I was 13 and I only wanted to help. Merlin, Mooney, just tell me. Narcissa, he said. I gave her the idea to use the unbreakable vow. You know, to get out of the engagement. The engagement, not your engagement, because that was still too painful. Sirius was quiet. Remus bit his lip and turned his head onto the pillow to get a look at Sirius's face. I'm really sorry for interfering, but you gave me that reading spell and you were so... I just thought you were so amazing and clever and brave. I wanted to do something to help you for once. But you didn't want me to know about it. No, I didn't. At first I didn't want to boast about it. Then so much time had passed, it just didn't seem worth it. Mooney, Sirius exhaled again, exasperated this time. Honestly, you and your secrets. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Sirius chuckled, yawning again and shifting slightly to get comfortable. I suppose I did ask. And that's bloody impressive. I couldn't have come up with that at 13. Well, you didn't, Remus smirked. So you actually went and talked to my cousin? Yeah, she was terrifying. Still is, Sirius snorted. They all bloody are. Don't think about it now, Remus chastised him, or I'll have to cheer you up again, and I can't think of any more secrets tonight. There are other ways, Sirius replied slyly. Remus laughed, hoping the silencing spell was still secure. Harlot.
Oh, Sirius, you dog.
You bad boy, you.
Spearmint tooth, what?
The smell of the toothpaste.
Oh, yeah.
The toothpaste smell.
Spicy chocolate chili recipes. Yeah, I'll do my own research on that. But I might have to try it. Oh, baking chocolate? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be baking chocolate.
I think we still have some of that.
We do.
We got some.
We do. Yep. We do. So, Regulus is a Death Eater now. That's a thing.
Mm-hmm. And James does not like it. So much so that cool, calm, collective James, friend to all,
punched him in the, like,
went at him.
Yeah, went at him for it. Well, went at him for what he said about Lily.
Yeah.
So James is calm, cool, and collected unless Lily is concerned. Then he loses his mind.
Yeah. Then things happen.
Yep.
Lily was not happy about it.
No, I can imagine that what was actually said was probably pretty horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I
feel like she appreciated James's actions, though.
I feel like she appreciated where his heart was, but not that it went so far.
Yeah.
Slughorn and McGonagall. BFFs. What do you think Slughorn is thinking about all of this? He's probably like half his students are Voldemort's followers. He's probably sitting there going, what do we do about this? Oh.
He's probably just thinking like, let's see, okay, I think those students like me, so we're good.
Yeah, like, Lily Evans is one of his favorites, and his people are his kids are calling her Mudblood and all this stuff.
Slughorn just diversifies his portfolio, right? No matter who wins, he's got plenty of assets on each side to continue to donate crystallized pineapple to his cause.
I mean, he's the head of Slytherin House, and he has to manage them.
But what I'm saying is, I think he's just kind of like out of it.
Yeah.
And he's just like playing both sides. And,
yeah. But I mean, it's got to be awkward.
No matter who comes out the winner, he comes out ahead.
Well, yeah. Yeah, Dan just said he rides the fence too much.
Yeah.
I just think it's probably pretty awkward. That he's probably sitting there going, I have the one black in my collection. That's good. I have Lily Evans in my collection, and he's insulting her. Awkward.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah. No, mate. You're both slugs at the end of the day.
You're both part of the
slug. Whether you're muggle-born or not.
You're still a part of the slug club. I like her writing of this secret romance thing too. Where who says it? Sirius says sometimes it feels like we're a million miles away from each other when we're with people. He's struggling with keeping it a secret.
So just be open.
Could just
Don't
tell
keep it a
everyone.
secret.
Don't keep it a secret. Just tell your
Obviously,
friends who are supportive of Remus. Just tell James and tell, Mary and Marlene would obviously not care.
that's what
They'd
I
be
was gonna
fine with
say.
it.
Like Remus did the hard part, right? Like
Yeah.
he just went into uncharted waters
And
and
just laid it out
laid
there.
it out
Yeah.
there. Now Sirius knows that they're completely
Fine
supportive
with
of
it.
Remus,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be much easier for Sirius.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it's still a challenge just for him to come to grips with saying it, but
Right.
it's another disappointment to his family, you know.
Yep. So you were right. These were the repercussions of the thing that happened. We're
Yeah.
seeing the repercussions of the war. I also liked all the things with Remus talking about how he's trying to etch in every moment, every instance of coming back to Hogwarts because it's the last time,
Mm-hmm.
and riding in the carriages for the last time, seeing the sorting for the last time. But it's it's hard because of everything going on, and um, just that kind of the finality of this is everyone's last year here,
Yeah.
and everyone's kind of grown up and moving on, and they're, she's saying things like, the author's saying things like, this was, they unpacked their things in the bedroom where they spent their entire childhoods and this and that, and it's very, there's a lot of bittersweetness to a lot of what's happening, and on top of that, you just have the war like looming over everything, and
Yeah.
it's at the point, I think, now where they all realize that they really can't ignore it anymore. They can't escape from it anymore. It's coming to them.
Yeah.
It's here. Um, and we know that just this is almost it for Lily and James. They're gonna kick it.
Yep.
Um,
And I'm sure last year at Hogwarts is especially hard for Remus because even if there wasn't a war going on, he knows that with his condition, like the real world is going to be a major struggle.
yeah, it's gonna be hard.
Mm-hmm.
And but then they've got this whole thing going where like Sirius is like, it's not gonna matter, I'm gonna take care of you, we've got each other, and it's gonna be okay, and Remus is not gonna have that because Sirius is going to go to prison,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
So you think after Sirius goes to prison, like those years in between when Sirius goes to prison and when he comes back to Hogwarts, do you think he's going to be like living in a trap house? Is it going to be rough? Is he going to, find him? Or is Dumbledore going to come find him in the same situation that Grant was? Remus is just going to be
A street drunk.
completely plastered. Hey, Dumbledore. I like the suit.
Yeah, I don't know.
They talk about, his tattered robes and everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that would be a very interesting way to go about it. In this story, at least. Sure, that isn't the true nature of what happened, but.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen next. I mean, the thing is this is very so bittersweet because Sirius and Remus are so happy. Lily and James are so happy. And the war is going to destroy all of that. Lily and James are going to die. And this man, that Remus has been in love
Boy,
with. Man boy. That he's been in love with since he's 11. He is going to think that this person who he loves was responsible for the murder of his other best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ugh. Remus.
If there was any reason to start drinking yourself to
Oblivion.
there it
That would
is.
be a reason to do that.
There it
Yes.
is.
All right. Goodbye. Thank you for joining us.
Bye, Tyron. And hopefully you can join us this Thursday. Yeah, it's only gonna go downhill from here.
It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of seventh year plays out. I'm very curious. I'm sure we're going to get
can't
a
wait.
wedding chapter.
Oh yeah.
We'll get a lovely wedding chapter.
Probably Harry's birth.
Harry's birth. Yep.
It will be super, super interesting to see how Snape plays into this year because we haven't seen a lot of Snape.
And all of a sudden he showed up. Yep.
I think this year we're going to see a lot of Snape.
We might see some more.
Has all his big bad Death Eater cronies behind him.
Yep.
Backing him up.
Yeah. It was mentioned he shook Regulus's hand for fighting James.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we still have 68 chapters left to go, so there's still plenty of story.
Senioritis. Yeah. I remember that.
Yep, senioritis indeed. I think that's going to happen.
Man, I remember I had some major senioritis. Like, my senior year, I had to write like 5 essays in 2 days.
Wow. So the next
Because I was putting it off for so long.
30 chapters are seventh year.
Oh, all right. So we don't get a lot afterwards.
No.
Probably because we're just going to kind of skip the 10-year span between Sirius going to Azkaban and Lupin shows up. Because, I mean, you're probably just going to have it fast forward 10 years and then Sirius is drunk in a gutter and Dumbledore shows up. It's like, pull yourself together.
So the next 30 chapters are seventh year, and then the next 24 chapters are the war. And then after that, the last few chapters, just 1982, 1983. They're just years.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, Dan, you didn't have a senior year? Why is that?
30 years for one Yeah, 30 chapters for 1 year. I mean, Hallows was 36 chapters.
Yeah.
So.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
I know.
Yeah, it is like the later Harry Potter books. That's what I mean. It's technically shorter than 7.
I know my sister didn't have her senior year because she doubled up in junior year, so she graduated as a junior. She got all her credits.
Oh, that was a struggle.
Which, when I was going through, I didn't know you could do that. No one told me. I didn't bother to ask either, but I would have totally did that. Like, hey, by the way, if you double up and forego study halls and lunches, you can get all your credits and just graduate. Like, bam. Sign me up. I totally did that. Not that I didn't have a great time my senior year. My senior year was actually pretty awesome, but
I didn't have a senior year. My senior year was spent in Russia.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So I had enough credits to graduate. So I just went to Russia instead.
Oh. Well, okay.
And then graduated technically with my class when I got back. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
What the heck?
No Child Left Behind. Ruined a lot for a lot of people.
I guess so.
Terrible.
It is.
Terrible.
I don't know. I didn't really think too much about like the school system, but now as a parent, like I think about it a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to get into that.
No, we don't need to go there.
I could say some stuff.
Mm-hmm. We were here for Harry Potter. We got some Harry Potter. Which was
Schools
good.
should teach Harry Potter there. That's it.
The
That's all I'm
schools
saying
should
about
teach Harry Potter.
it. Well, some do, because we've had
Yeah, some
people
do.
who drop in and they actually
They're
use our readings as audiobooks
right for their
and
class projects
discussions
and
to,
stuff.
yeah.
And I know there are college courses that teach Harry Potter.
Well, yeah.
Um,
My college, um, you could learn. Oh my god, there was a class just on Tolkien.
yep, yep. There's a lot of colleges who just do
Mm.
Tolkien, but you can also like learn Elvish.
Yeah, you
Like
could
you
learn
take
Elvish in high
Elvish.
school.
Yep. Um. Yeah, I think.
You can actually learn High Valyrian in school now too.
Yep, and Dothraki.
Hmm.
I think these next 68 chapters are going to be.
I think the next maybe 20 chapters are going to be pretty awesome, where it's going to be kind of like real Marauder stuff, where it's going to be back and forth between them and the Slytherins. I
Yeah.
was going to say pranks, probably a little bit more vicious than pranks.
Yeah, yeah.
But still school
Stuff.
appropriate, I guess. Not killing anyone.
Well, I would hope so. Yeah.
But
And then
then things are gonna then I think it's gonna go downhill, and then we're gonna have like James's wedding and Harry's birth. We're gonna have some high points again, and then it's just gonna be 10 years of Remus just depressed awfulness.
depressed awfulness.
He's gonna
Maybe
go back to school. He's gonna meet Tonks. Things are gonna go up, and then
maybe
they die.
maybe he'll meet up with Grant again.
Oh, maybe he'll be living in a trap house with Grant.
Yeah, maybe him and
Yeah.
Grant will get together. Maybe no, maybe it'll be fine like I said. Maybe they'll be happy and they'll like Remus will be the house husband while Grant goes and works.
Maybe, but Remus wasn't very well off, so I don't know.
Grant would have to be the moneymaker.
I guess so. They're gonna start up their own business.
Maybe.
I can't think of anything.
Mooney's Moon Pies. I don't know.
Maybe.
Could invite Grant to the Potters. Yep, maybe. But yeah, I think the wedding and Harry's birth are going to be absolutely wonderful. And then I think, the bad thing is going to happen and it's just going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And hopefully I don't cry when I read it.
It's okay if you do.
I mean, I cried.
We made it through Dobby's death.
We did make it through Dobby. Made it through Sirius's death. I made it through Snape's death.
I just remember Dobby's because you like read that like 4 or 5 different times because you couldn't make it through the whole thing.
I couldn't. No, it was so hard.
And that was like what, your 10th time reading the books?
Yeah. It doesn't matter how many times I read those books. I can't read it.
Dobby was a special elf.
He was. I could barely read the part where Harry's like digging the grave and stuff too after. Like, oh, it's just
Oh, that was the other news. So apparently, there is a place in Wales where they filmed Dobby's death/burial. And there's actually a grave, or at least a monument to Dobby there that you can go see.
Mm-hmm.
And they're thinking about removing it because there's so many people coming to see it. It's actually having an impact on the environment there and ecology. So if you do want to go see that and you happen to be near Wales, go see it while you can.
Before they get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
fair
like
enough.
to visit it.
I would like to see it, before it's gone, but I doubt that'd happen.
Yeah, you would think. Why would it cut?
Well, Melanie, why would we increase funding to educate people when we could decrease funding and make people less educated? Because the less educated you are, the more easily manipulated you are. Come on now.
That's why we have. It's, we're not getting into
We
this.
can't get into this right now.
You get way too emotional with this.
Fair enough.
Oh, the school wasn't diverse enough. I mean, okay, I guess. I don't know.
How do you have diverse schools when neighborhoods are still
We're not
segregated? Okay. 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 I won't go there. I won't go there.
There's a lot of problems we could definitely talk
Yes,
about, but
we are not here to talk about social injustice. We're talking about Harry Potter.
there's
We
a
can
lot of
talk about
times you
social
really want
injustice.
Maybe you should make like a separate channel where you could vent all that.
We can talk about social injustice in the wizarding world. That's
Yeah.
when we can talk about it. We can't talk about the real stuff because I will rant for hours and don't need that. No one needs to hear that.
Oh, I forgot, Dan. I hope you're okay. I know there's a lot of wildfires going on out there right now. Things
Oh,
are
yeah.
kind of crazy
Yeah,
out
yeah,
west.
yeah. All the
So
drought and
hopefully
everything going on.
yeah.
Yeah. Stay safe, dude. Part of me wants to read more, but I think we should call it good.
Yeah. Hogwarts class where the students study literature. That would be interesting. Um,
Well, maybe they do. Maybe there is. We've talked about how there could be higher education beyond Hogwarts. We just don't know what it is because Harry doesn't go to school in his 7th year, so we don't know if there are like wizard colleges and things.
yeah.
Um,
I always kind of pictured it as higher education in the wizarding world is more like trade schools.
apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's got to be higher wizarding education for people who just study academics.
Yeah.
Like Bathilda Bagshot wrote a history of magic. There's got to be just wizard historians or alchemists or there's got to be additional schooling for people who do certain things.
Yeah.
Um
No, I agree.
Horrors require additional schooling.
Yeah.
I just think we don't. So maybe there is like wizarding literature studies, but it's not anything Harry's ever gonna do, so we don't hear about it, you know? Like somebody's got to study like the Tales of Beetle the Bard. Like somebody studied that, somebody translated the runes. There's got to be a whole echelon of like wizard higher education.
Yeah.
We just don't see it or hear about it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That would be something very cool for J.K. Rowling to do to flesh out the world a little bit more.
Right, like wizarding higher education. Like, how did Dumbledore discover the 12 uses of dragon's blood? You know what I mean? Like, things like that.
Yeah, I do believe there is a healer school.
Yeah, I think there is. And there are, like, healers in training at St. Mungo's and whatnot. There is, like, healer schooling and training.
Yeah.
After Hogwarts, yeah.
Exactly.
It's just like med school here. You don't just graduate from Hogwarts and just go start doing that. You have to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hogwarts library is pretty huge. There's got to be more than just spells and potions and stuff. There's got to be a literature section somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they keep all those dark magic books.
Yeah.
You have to have at least some literature-based books.
And I think the only reason we don't see anything in the books is because, they never... The only things you're told in the books are things that are relevant to the story.
And relevant to Harry.
And relevant to Harry. Like, I'm sure there are days...
We know that arithmetic is a class that people can take, but Harry never took it, so we never learned anything about it.
Right, arithmancy.
Or arithmancy, I mean.
Yeah. Which is pretty much like wizard math.
Yeah.
Ancient runes. Hermione takes it, but Harry doesn't. So we don't know anything.
I mean, ancient runes, there's a literary course right there.
Right, and then you can learn to read old texts and stuff like that. But I'm sure, like, in their downtime, like, I'm sure there are kids who take um,
Well,
literature books out to just like read,
yeah,
but we don't. They're just not relevant to the story.
or off the books courses, kind of like Remus is taking the healer course, but it's
Yeah,
not something
yeah,
that's necessarily offered to everyone.
yeah. It's like a voluntary upper level thing. I'm sure
Yeah,
there's like study groups and things that people do.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure Lavender Brown reads wizard romance novels. Yeah, that seems accurate.
I
That
could see it.
seems that seems like it's probably
Mm. Uh, that's what I would say, that they can move Dobby's grave, Melanie, but I don't know all the details on it.
unlike what their
Yeah,
what their plan would be.
it just said that they were noticing a lot of harm caused to the environment just because of the huge number of people who come. So
Just the
they're,
volume alone
yeah,
is having a detrimental effect.
I don't think they've decided what they were going to do necessarily, but that is pretty much what they're proposing, is that they have to remove it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Maybe they'll move it to the Wizarding World. What's the place called in the UK? The Harry Potter
Oh, the Harry Potter, like
world. Yeah,
yeah, tour and all that stuff they have there.
yeah.
Yeah, that could be.
They might just move it to a place there.
Mm-hmm. They could, but yeah, I thought there was a cat behind
And
me.
on that note,
On that note, yes, we're going to say au revoir for today.
it's been fun.
It has been a great time talking about Hogwarts, reading about Remus Lupin.
And at least we didn't end on a terrible note.
Yes, yes, we ended on a good note. Story
Yeah.
is good. Things are good. Stuff is happening. No depressing things this time.
Exactly.
Yay!
And yeah, the filming location will always be a draw, but it's the, I guess you have not only the people who just want to see the location, but then the big fans of Dobby that want to just take a picture on his grave, or like
Maybe people leave flowers there for
maybe,
him.
or leave socks. There's probably a ton of socks.
Oh my god, if people leave socks there, yeah. I think it's been confirmed there are no wizarding colleges. There are apprenticeships. Maybe the wizarding libraries supply post-secondary education.
Okay, see, so I was right.
Yeah.
It's like apprenticeships.
Well, I think if you want to be like a literary person or you want to be a historian, then you like become an adjunct apprentice person to a professional in the field. Yeah,
Or-
maybe the libraries offer that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That
Or
could be
maybe
it.
you just have to do your own outside research education.
I don't know. I feel like maybe a librarian would take you on. Or
Yeah.
if there's some literary expert in the field that would take you on.
Yeah.
So you could study literature. But yeah. Either way. It's definitely got to be a thing.
Hogwarts isn't there yet. Have secondary schools like that, because
Well,
they're kind of behind and old-fashioned in a lot of ways. No electronic devices. Castles still use the same old stuff. Maybe they're just like, why do we need a secondary education when you can just get an apprenticeship in the field you want?
well, that's fair. And honestly, in some ways, that's better.
Mm-hmm.
For some things, it's better than getting a secondary education. Having an apprenticeship, in some ways, is better.
I just mean, like, what colleges? I guess they've been around for a while.
They have been
but
around.
they weren't like accessible to most people, or like mainstream, until what, early 1900s.
If you look at like medieval times, college was something that only very specific individuals went to, and usually it was religious scholars who went to college, that kind of thing, and it was different.
I guess I say it didn't really show up in the mainstream because prior to like the 1900s, it was really just the wealthy, or
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just if you could even afford to go to school,
Well, and it wasn't necessary for a lot of things.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go to college to do X, Y, and Z. You would apprentice with this person for 3 years, and then you would do the thing.
So that's it.
You
That's
know?
it. Hogwarts is still so ingrained in past ways. Like, you don't need another degree or education. You're just going to go and do it and learn it that way.
Yeah. I think literature would be the same thing. Like, I think if you wanted to be a historian, like, you would spend X amount of years with Bathilda Bagshot learning under her.
Or you go
something
and
like that.
you get a, well, you know, you choose what you want to do and then you kind of take your classes. So I'm sure there's like literary classes, and when you get out, you probably get a job at like the Daily Prophet or something, journalism, writing articles and stuff.
Or flourish in Blott's the bookstore.
Yeah. So,
Or a wizarding library that we don't know anything about.
yeah. Okay.
All right, on that,
Now
note,
on that note.
on that note, we will see you guys all next time. Next Thursday, tune in for more All the Young Dudes.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, everyone.
Yes, have